Well, hey everybody, it's Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Guys, today I have some big news. The channel over the Labor Day weekend reached the 1,000 subscriber mark and I just couldn't be happier. But first of all, I just want to say thank you so much. I was saying to somebody on the Facebook page just the other day that before I went on YouTube, people had warned me that I really need to grow a very thick skin, and I was prepared for that. But I have to say that isn't what I have found in my channel's budding community. It's just friendly and congenial, and even when people disagree, it seems that they do it with class, and I just couldn't be happier with the growth of this channel. And so thank you so much, and here's hoping this is just the first milestone. The channel is currently under application for YouTube partnership, so here's hoping. Yeah, so today I just had a couple of announcements, a little bit of QA, and then I wanted to do the match tests. So back when I did my review on the Livinguard mask, I had chosen the model called the Defend. There is the activity, the safety, and the defend. The defend having the 4 layers of fabric as opposed to 3, and having had the higher bacterial filtration efficiency at 99% versus 95 for the safety. But guys, something has changed now with Livinguard, and the Defend is no longer available to be ordered without a valve. The Defend only comes with a valve, and I just don't recommend any masks with valves. I was really disappointed in Livinguard for this because I had some conversations with them when I was in the process of getting prepared to do the review on the Defend. And at that time, they had said to me that they were looking at testing it some more, that they didn't really think that the leak out of the valve was significant. I don't know how that really could hold water, but they did acknowledge that in many places the valve isn't even legal. So I'm just so disappointed that they decided to take their most protective mask and then have it only sold with a valve. So I know you guys, you can deactivate valves and whatnot, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but I just don't recommend that mask anymore, so I'm really sorry. Now, I did get a question about some of these antimicrobial textiles that seem to be marketed in such a way that they claim to be protecting the garment or the fabric or the mask itself and not the wearer. And what is that about, right? Because if it's antiviral or antibacterial, how can you say it's there just to protect the garment but not to protect the person who's wearing it? That's kind of one and the same. But what I have found is that it sounds like that is really a function of what they are allowed to market in various jurisdictions. So in some countries, you're allowed to make different claims than in other countries. In the United States, the marketing regulation is very strict. So you might find a mask where in the United States, it says on their webpage that the antimicrobial action is meant to protect the textile itself and not a person who's wearing it. And that same item, that same mask, might be marketed on their page for European customers, saying that it's there to protect the wearer of the mask. So I think this is kind of splitting hairs. If somebody has a different insight on it, please let me know. Just put it in the comment box. But to my mind, the whole purpose of antimicrobial textiles is, yes, of course, to keep the microbes from growing on the textile, which protects the textile. But the extrapolation there is obvious to me, which is that it's to protect the human being. And then a little more about valves. I've gotten a few requests to review the O2 Canada mask, which sort of is like a respirator. It does look like it has a pretty good seal on it. And I did cover this briefly in my video that I did about masks I didn't review. And the reason I didn't review that one is because it does have a valve. Now, I realize that a lot of these manufacturers are now trying to answer this issue by saying, well, you can cover the valve, you can tape the valve, we have this little plug you can put in there and deactivate the valve, and I guess that's better than not doing it. A few months ago might have been one thing, but at this point, the free market and human ingenuity have come together to just create a multitude of options now that we have to use in terms of personal protective equipment. And I don't see the reason to reach for something with a valve. I understand that it can be deactivated. I don't know if it's been tested as to whether there's any leak around those plugs or tape that you might put on it for deactivation. But you say approach a group of people or even one other human being and you're wearing a mask that obviously has a valve, that person doesn't know that you've got it deactivated. I just don't see in good social conscience doing something like that that's going to be so off-putting and potentially scary to other people when there are other options around. And I think the fact that these valves are still around on these masks is really more of a function of the fact that some of these masks are really engineered with like air quality and pollution in mind. I do take issue with a manufacturer putting a product out there and implying that it applies to pandemic situation and then having a valve there. So that's the O2 Canada and frankly, several other masks. So I'm just not going there when there are so many other options on the market. I'm just not inclined to look at anything with a valve. Then I had a question come up about how bad is a valve? Like if some of the air escapes through a valve, is that really any different, say, than, I'm just going to pick up one of my masks here. Is that really any different than, say, the leak that's inevitably coming from around this mask when I have it on, right? Because I've said on this channel before that all masks have some leak. Well, yeah, I think it is. So when I put this mask on and I exhale, my exhaled air doesn't just immediately go out into the atmosphere around me. Probably a little bit does, but for the most part, it's sort of stuck here in this very warm, moist environment around my mouth. And some people complain about the mask being a little bit hot, warm, moist. That's good. That's how it's going to work. So when tiny little respiratory droplets that would, in a dry condition, shed or evaporate the outer layer and leave a tiny aerosolized particle dancing around in the air, those same particles inside of this mask staying next to my mouth for an extra second can't do that. So that's how wearing masks cuts down on the generation of aerosols in the first place. Now, if you have a valve, that air doesn't stay pooled next to you at all. The valve is designed to be shut when you inhale, and as soon as there is any pressure at all coming from inside the mask, meaning you are exhaling, that valve opens and everything bypasses the filter, any layers of fabric, it just exits the mask immediately. So anything that's really small, if it's in a dry condition, certainly it's always drier out here than it is inside the mask, that has much more potential to produce aerosols, in my opinion. So yeah, I do think that whatever amount of exhaled air comes out through a valve is very, very different than that which is leaking from around a mask. And finally, I've gotten some questions about the Synovia, given that people feel that they can really just see through this fabric. Now, I've got a window over there, so I've got a lot of natural light coming in that way. And when I hold this Synovia mask up to the light, I do see the outline of my fingers. Now, I could probably see that on a light piece of paper. I don't really see through it. I see the shadow and the outline. But I think it's a fair question. So, it'll be interesting to see now if anybody buys the Synovia mask that's now available in black and see if that is like thin enough to show light through, because I think it's really hard to say with white. And I think that's one of the reasons that I want to do the match test, particularly on a Sono mask. And that's one of the questions I got on the Facebook page. So on that note, we'll get to the match test. Okay, so guys, I've got a few different masks. I've got my Everbrand mask with Viral Off. I've got a Starks mask. I have got my Aeropack mask. And I've got my old Synovia. This one is so beat up, guys. This is the one I've been using for like testing, like stick-on aluminum strips. It's just a mess. Now, I know that I've said in the past, I got busted, that I've often put, when I'm on camera, just some kind of a tissue or a paper towel, and I tape it inside the Sono mask because it's white and I don't want to get the camera makeup all over it, but that would bias this test, obviously, so I'm just going to show you. I don't have anything taped in here. It's just, this is the Sono mask as is. And this one is pretty beat up, so I think that'll be very telling, right, with the match test. So I guess I'll start with the Sono mask. I don't know if I'm going to turn the camera off in between masks here. Got a book of matches. So again, you can see there's nothing in there. This is just my oldest, most beat up Sono mask, no nose clip. I'm gonna get now, the match test is meant to be performed about a foot away. So I'm thinking about here. I'd get closer. I don't want to burn my face off. I'd say that's passed. The Synovia passes the match test. So the match test is not a real scientific thing, but from what I have read online, there are several experts that feel that it is a good way to just determine how much is allowed to get through here at a given time. So how well it's making you keep your respiratory droplets to yourself. Of course, this won't inform the protection. It also won't inform if you happen to be leaking any aerosols. Maybe you're sick or coughing or breathing hard like I just did. That might elicit some aerosols. And this match test, of course, is too crude and it can't speak to that. But it is a nice test in terms of just the integrity of the fabric. I understand that when people tested this on like those plain old bandana scarves, that those are the ones that tend to fail this test. So we're going to get on to this. There is another test that I just might do here, which is a water test, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a moment. Sorry guys, this is the AeroPack mask. I feel a lot of leakage down here, so I'm going to hold that tight. Nope. All right. The AeroPack mask is good. Whew. I can smell that smoke from these matches and the breathing hard. Ugh. All right, here's my Starks mask. Of course, I got one without my adjusters on it. Again, I feel some leakage down here, so I'm just going to hold that part. Yeah, I don't see it. All right. That's the Starks mask. Whew, I've got one more here. So this is my Ever brand with Viral Off technology. When I feel a little more leak on the nose, so I'm just going to tighten that up. Nope. All right. Phew, because these are all masks that I've recommended. I would do the old Livinguard one that I recommended at one point, but A, you can't buy that one anymore, and B, I gave that one to my son, so I no longer have the one Livinguard that I did recommend, which is no longer available. As far as my feeling about the Synovia look, I get it. I do understand that maybe you feel it's a little unsettling. What about this weave that I can like see light through it? But you know, unless you don't believe their testing, which is that this filter's at the 5-micron particle size, and I think that combined with the match test, you know, for me, is fine. Now, I have done a video before on which mask to choose, and as I said in that video, it really depends a lot on your circumstances and a lot about whether other people are wearing masks or you're in some sort of a situation where you're likely going to see the generation of aerosols. And in that case, I did recommend either a layering technique or a hybrid technology, and that's just me. It could be that this is just fine, but my feeling is I'd want to be much more conservative in a particularly dangerous situation. That said, I wear my Synovia and I like it and I trust it. Yeah, so another test that I had read about is a water test. Now, some masks have water-resistant material in them and some don't, but nonetheless, a mask with a tight weave that's designed to keep most of your respiratory droplets to yourself apparently should have a pretty slow transfer of water that lands on one side till it comes through to the other. So I thought that we would take a look at that. I don't think we're going to find anything surprising with either the AeroPack, the Everbrand, or the Starks, because they all have either polypropylene or non-woven fabric like what's in surgical masks, which to me means polypropylene. But I thought I would just do like a whole dropper full. I know I've done some testing before where we look at, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show this to you on camera or you're going to have to take my word for it, but I've just put 2 complete dropperfuls into the inside of the mask, and it is wicking, but the outside, whoops, you just saw it, some of it roll off. I don't know if you saw it, but the outside, well, there's a 3rd dropperful, and the outside here is still dry. I'm going to try to show you the outside. Going to push on it a little bit, fold it, see what happens. Yeah, so the outside is still dry. All right, so that speaks very highly of the Everbrand mask. Onto the Starks mask. So again, I'm going to start from the inside. I'm going to put, I guess I'll do the same thing. Let's do 3 droppers full. That's the third one. Sorry, I didn't have that all on camera. And you can see that's right in. And the outside is pretty dry here. All right. That looks good on the Starks mask. How about the Aeropack mask? Again, I'm going to put 3 droppers full. And you can see that's soaking in. What about the outside? The outside's still dry. All right. Now, I hesitate to do this test on something like a Synovia because it's marketed as a purely antimicrobial textile mask with 5-micron filtration. But as you guys know, or for those of you who have seen my other mask reviews, all 3 of these that I just did fall on the hybrid continuum or the pure fabric mask. And part of my criteria for the pure fabric mask is a water-resistant layer on the outside. And then both of the others that are the hybrids here have water-resistant layers on the outside. The Synovia claims to have no such thing, so it would be hardly fair to subject it to a water-resistant test, but I think we can still get a look at how quickly water goes through. Okay, so is the outside wet immediately? Now, it's going to be a little bit hard to get it to show up here on camera, but I'm going to do my best just because of the white. So 1, 2, 3. Whoops, just dropped something. Whoops. Oh, looks like it kind of almost beat it up on the outside. Now it is. A lot of it beat it up and fell off. Now it is a tiniest bit. Yeah, it's damp out here, but really, guys, most of that water, even though this doesn't claim to be water resistant, most of that water beat it up and rolled off. Wow, that's really interesting. So like I would expect, it finally does get wet, but I'll tell you, this is not something I can give you a sense of from the camera, but I can easily separate these 2 layers, the inside layer and the outside layer. And the inside layer is more wet, and it's just a thicker and rougher feel than the outside layer. Wow. Well, that's pretty impressive for a mask that's doesn't have any water resistance in it. So I think that does speak to the tightness of the weave, and I wonder if that people are seeing through this just because it is light, it's a white color. Because this does appear to me to do a pretty good job of slowing down the inevitable permeation from one layer to the other, from the inside out. Let me know if that was helpful, guys. I really was impressed with the match test on all these. I felt like, phew, because there's a test that we're sort of propagating around the internet ever since Bill Nye the Science Guy did it. And I was wondering, are all my masks that I've recommended going to hold up to the match test? And yeah, so I'm really glad they did. So let me know if you guys want to see anything else with these. I'm sorry I couldn't show the old Livinguard. I'm really sorry about Livinguard's change. I want to say thank you again for the growth of the channel. I'm so happy that people find the content helpful. And until next time, be well. Bye-bye.